enough is enough, I can't keep doing this. I'm Mia Reynolds, a nurse, a daughter, and a woman who's finally stopped playing the game. This is my story. The one no one expected and everyone underestimated. It's about to unravel everything you thought you knew about family, betrayal, and survival. And by the end, you'll wonder who the real enemy was all along. I never thought I would find myself here, standing at the edge of everything I had worked so hard for. But there I was, on the cusp of a new chapter. I'm 33 years old, a nurse at Memorial Hospital, and if you'd asked me 5 years ago where I saw myself now, I would have told you that I would be living in a small cottage with a garden. I dreamed of that cottage, the kind with a wraparound porch and soft pastel walls, where I could finally plant roots after spending so many years on the move, bouncing from one responsibility to another. I had spent a decade working double shifts at the ICU, sacrificing my time, my energy, and often my happiness to provide care for others. I watched my friends get married, travel, build families, while I worked nights and weekends, my personal life nothing more than a series of missed opportunities. But I never minded it. Not really. Not when I had a goal. Every dollar I saved, every ounce of energy I poured into my work, was for a future that I could hold in my hands. At least, that's what I told myself. The truth was, I had a family who always seemed to take from me without ever giving anything back. A mother who was quick to call on me when they needed help but never once asked if I needed anything. A stepfather, George, who had his own set of priorities, none of which involved paying attention to the sacrifices I made for the family. Then there was Eric, my stepbrother. Eric was different. Eric was the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. While I struggled with student loans and worked part-time jobs to get through nursing school, Eric was handed opportunities. When his business ventures failed, one after another, my parents bailed him out. I watched them drain their savings to help him, refinancing the house multiple times, all for him. Meanwhile, I kept my head down, doing everything I could to prove my worth. I thought maybe, just maybe, one day they would see me for who I was, not just the reliable one, the responsible one, but the one who had sacrificed everything. "Don't worry about it, Mia," Rachel, my best friend, would say whenever I complained. "You're doing this for you. You'll get there." But I wasn't doing it for me, not really. I was doing it because I had to. For so long it felt like if I didn't give, no one would. But I convinced myself it was worth it. That the day would come when they would appreciate what I had done, when they would finally understand. That day never came. Then, everything changed. It was just supposed to be a simple gesture. When my parents called, desperate and in tears because they were about to lose the house, I didn't hesitate. I had spent years saving up $175,000 for my own future, but instead of using it for a down payment on a cozy little house of my own, I gave it to them. I told myself it was temporary, that this would be the thing that finally proved to them I was more than just the one who picked up the slack. We spent weeks looking at houses together, and I fell in love with one, the colonial house on Maple Street. It was everything I had ever imagined. When I saw it, I knew it was the place I would call home. I signed all the preliminary papers, the ones that made me the owner. I thought this was it. This was the moment where my sacrifice would be acknowledged. "You're such a blessing, honey," my mom had said, wrapping me in a tight hug after we got the house. "We'll make this work as a family." But something didn't sit right with me. I ignored the nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach, brushed aside the warning signs. The late-night phone calls between my mom and Eric, the meetings with their lawyer that I wasn't invited to, the way they delayed the final paperwork. It all seemed like nothing. I told myself it was just nerves, that they wouldn't betray me, not my own family, not after everything I had done for them. Was I wrong? It wasn't long before my doubts started to feel like an impending storm, gathering strength with each passing day. But I tried to ignore it. I had invested my savings in this, in them. I believed, no, I needed to believe that this would finally prove I was worthy of love, of recognition. I was about to host the housewarming party, and in my mind, this was my moment. The house was beautiful. I decorated it with everything I had dreamed of: fluffy towels for the bathroom, cheerful throw pillows for the living room, and a welcome mat that read, "Home, Sweet Home." I thought it was a celebration of everything I had worked for, everything I had sacrificed. But as I stood in the kitchen listening to the laughter and chatter from the living room, a knot twisted in my stomach. My mom, smiling, beaming with pride, looked at me across the room, and all I could think was, is this really happening? I could feel the weight of the decision I had made crashing down on me. I had given them everything, my savings, my dreams, my future, and yet nothing about this felt right. The house was supposed to be mine, my investment, my reward for years of hard work and sacrifice. But as I stood there, hearing the casual conversation between Eric and my mom, something in me snapped. How could they just take what was mine? The party continued around me, but I couldn't focus on the small talk, the congratulations. The sound of Eric's smug laughter echoed in my ears, as if he had earned this. This house, my house, was no longer mine. The deed, the dream I had held for so long had already been signed away. It was all slipping through my fingers. My heart was racing, my hands shaking, and I could barely catch my breath. Was it too late to fix this? Should I have seen this coming? I should have listened. I should have trusted my instincts when they told me something wasn't right. I turned away from the chaos, retreating to the kitchen. I needed to think, to breathe. But I couldn't escape the feeling that something gone terribly wrong. I had given everything for them, for us, and now all I could do was stand by and watch as they took it all away. Why was I the one left standing here, alone, with nothing? I could hear Rachel's voice in my head. You need to call Marcus. Maybe it was time to finally stand up for myself. The tension in my chest wouldn't go away, no matter how hard I tried to calm myself. I had given everything I had for this, my money, my trust, my sacrifices, but now as I stood there amidst the festive chaos of the housewarming party, everything I had worked for was slipping through my fingers. The house that I had poured my heart and soul into was no longer mine. It was a cruel joke, a bitter reminder of how little my family valued me. The sound of laughter and clinking glasses from the living room felt like a distant echo in my ears. I couldn't focus on the cheerful conversations. My mind kept racing back to the moment when I'd first realized the truth. The house was in Eric's name now. My own stepbrother, who hadn't contributed a single cent to the family's well-being, who had squandered every opportunity handed to him, was now the owner of the home I had worked my entire life to acquire. How had it happened? How had I let it happen? I looked down at my hands, still trembling slightly. I could feel the weight of the betrayal pressing down on me like a heavy blanket. It wasn't just the house. It was everything. The years of my life that had been spent working and sacrificing, hoping that my family would see me, that they would appreciate me, that I could finally be someone in their eyes. And yet, they had taken it all from me without even a second thought. Mia, are you okay? Rachel's voice pulled me out of my spiraling thoughts. I turned to see her standing at the kitchen doorway, concern etched on her face. I didn't answer right away. How could I? What could I say? That I was fine, that everything was going according to plan? That was the lie I had told myself for so long. The truth was, I felt like I was losing everything in that moment. I know, I'm not okay, I said, my voice barely above a whisper, but it felt like a dam had burst. The weight of everything I had kept inside came flooding out in that one sentence. I've worked for this, for years. I know, Rachel said softly, stepping into the room and placing a hand on my arm. But you don't have to carry all of this alone, Mia. I looked up at her, my eyes welling up with unshed tears. I had never been one to show weakness, to ask for help. But now, standing here, surrounded by the broken pieces of my life, I realized just how much I had needed someone. I don't know what to do, I murmured, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. It's my money, my savings, and now they've taken it all. Wait, what? Rachel's voice sharpened with concern. Mia, what do you mean, they've taken it? It's in Eric's name now, I said, the words barely leaving my mouth before they hit me like a slap across the face. I gave them everything I had, everything, and now they've just stolen it. And they don't even care. Her eyes widened in shock, and for a moment, there was silence. I could hear the faint hum of the music from the living room, but it felt like a distant, foreign sound. This is not okay, Rachel finally said, her voice low and steady. We need to figure this out, Mia. You need to do something about it. I don't know where to start, I admitted, feeling the weight of uncertainty pressing down on me. It's my family, what if? What if I make things worse? What if I lose them forever? Rachel was quiet for a moment, and I could feel her eyes on me, her gaze soft but intense. Mia, they've already chosen their side. They've already made their decision. You can't keep living your life based on what ifs. You deserve better than this. You deserve the truth. I felt a strange knot twist in my stomach. My entire life I had been taught to stay quiet, to be the one who sacrificed for the sake of family. Every decision I made was for them. But now, in the face of this betrayal, something inside me was starting to change. Maybe you're right, I said, my voice firmer than it had been a moment ago. I can't let them walk all over me anymore. I need to do something. Rachel nodded, her expression full of quiet encouragement. Good, we'll get this figured out, Mia. You're not alone in this. We'll find a way to make it right. I took a deep breath, the knot in my stomach loosening just a little. For the first time since the party had started, I felt a glimmer of hope. There was something I could do. I didn't have to stand by and let this happen to me. I could fight back. The question remained, though, how? How could I possibly undo what had been done? How could I possibly take back what was mine when it felt like I was up against a mountain of lies and manipulation? I turned my attention back to the kitchen counter where I had absent-mindedly placed the papers. The original deed, the contract that had promised the house would be mine in exchange for my savings, was there. The same document I had signed in good faith, believing that I was securing my future. But it wasn't mine anymore. It had been stolen, signed away under my nose, and now I was left with nothing but a broken dream and a bitter taste in my mouth. What if this is all a mistake? I asked aloud, more to myself than to Rachel. What if I'm just overreacting? Rachel shook her head, her voice gentle but firm. Mia, you're not overreacting. You're standing up for yourself for once. They've crossed a line and it's time to make them see that. I nodded slowly, the weight of her words sinking in. I had always been the one who made things right for everyone else. It was time for me to finally make things right for me. I'm going to find out what happened, I said, my voice more certain now. I'll figure this out. Rachel smiled, a small but reassuring smile. That's the Mia I know. And for the first time that night, I felt a flicker of something that resembled determination. The following days felt like a blur, each one running into the next, consumed by a whirlwind of emotions that ranged from helplessness to anger to a sense of deep betrayal. I couldn't stop replaying the moments from the party in my head, the way they all acted as if nothing had happened, as if I should be happy for Eric, as if the whole thing hadn't been ripped from my hands. It was all a sick joke. I had sacrificed everything for my family, and they had thrown it all back in my face like it was nothing. I had always been the responsible one, the one they relied on. I'd grown up watching my mom prioritize Eric's mistakes over my accomplishments. It wasn't just the house that had been taken from me. It was my place in the family, my dignity, and my sense of belonging. I remembered when I was younger how different it felt when Eric first came into our lives. My dad had passed away when I was just 6, and my mom remarried George a year later. I was still trying to understand the world around me when Eric came into it, bursting in like a storm. From that moment, he became the center of everything. Eric was always the one who received the privileges. While I worked part-time jobs to save for college, my parents bought him expensive cars, paid for his extravagant lifestyle, and bailed him out every time his business ventures failed. I watched as they refinanced their house 3 times to cover his mistakes, pouring their savings into his endless string of failed ideas. But none of that was ever for me. I was never given the same support or attention. I pushed myself through nursing school, juggling night shifts as a CNA, taking out student loans that I was still paying off. I never once asked for help. I didn't want it. I didn't want to be like Eric, the one who always needed a handout, the one who never had to fight for anything. And yet, when the time came to save them, it was me who stepped in. My parents called me, tears in their voices, telling me they were about to lose the house. I didn't think twice. I didn't hesitate. I took my entire life savings and gave it to them, thinking that finally I would prove my worth. I thought this was my moment. I thought, finally, my family would recognize all that I had sacrificed for them. They would see me for who I truly was. Not just the dependable one, but the one who always put them first. The one who gave everything, without asking for anything in return. But now, it all felt like a cruel joke. I had given everything, and it hadn't meant a thing to them. It was Eric who mattered. It was Eric who got the house. I couldn't even look at my mom anymore without feeling a deep pit of resentment. She had always treated Eric like he could do no wrong. Even when he failed, even when he lied, she always found a way to excuse him. It was as if he was her only child. I could hear her voice in my head now, the way she had dismissed me that night at the party. "You're a nurse," she had said, rolling her eyes as if it were nothing. "You'll save it up again. Eric needs a stable home for his baby. What do you have? Just yourself." The words hit me like a slap. I could feel my blood boil even now, just thinking about them. The entitlement. The lack of understanding. They truly believed they were doing the right thing, that they were helping Eric. But at what cost? I thought about the hours I had spent working in the ICU, missing out on holidays, missing out on my own life, all to save that money. I thought about the relationships I had put on hold, the vacations I never took, all of it, for them. And now, all of it had been taken away in an instant. As I sat in my car outside the hospital, waiting to head home after a long shift, I thought about the conversation Rachel and I had. I remembered her telling me I wasn't overreacting. She had been the one to tell me to stop thinking about what-ifs, to stop wondering if it was too late to fix things. She was right. This wasn't about fixing things anymore. It was about standing up for myself. For the first time in my life, I wasn't going to just take it. I wasn't going to let them use me anymore. I dialed Marcus's number. He was the real estate attorney Rachel had recommended. I had been hesitant to reach out at first, but now I knew I had no choice. I needed answers. I needed to know what my options were, and I needed to figure out how to take control back. When Marcus answered, I could hear the calm in his voice. He had always been a good listener, and that was exactly what I needed right now. "Mia, how are you holding up?" he asked. "I don't know," I said, my voice breaking. "I feel like everything is falling apart. I thought this was going to be my fresh start, you know? The house, the garden, my own place where I could finally have peace. But now it's all gone. I gave them everything, Marcus. Everything." "I know," he said softly. "And I'm sorry you're going through this. But don't worry, we'll figure this out. You don't have to just accept what they've done." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. I signed the papers. I put down the down payment. But now they've transferred the house to Eric. It's in his name now. I don't know how they did it, but I know it's not right. I need your help. "You've come to the right place," Marcus said. "Let's go through everything you've got, Mia. If the transfer wasn't done legally, we can reverse it. We can get your house back." The weight in my chest lightened just a little, as if a small part of me finally believed that I wasn't powerless in all of this. There was a way forward. There was a path to getting what I had worked for. But as I hung up with Marcus, I couldn't help but wonder. Why had they done this to me? Why had my own family betrayed me like this? The days that followed were a blur of paperwork, phone calls, and legal jargon that made my head spin. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the house, the one that was supposed to be mine, and I felt the sting of betrayal all over again. My heart ached every time I thought about how much I had sacrificed. It wasn't just the money, it was the years of putting others first, of doing the right thing, of never asking for anything in return. And now I was left with nothing but a feeling of emptiness and anger. Rachel was there for me every step of the way. She became my sounding board, my rock. Every time I felt the weight of the situation threatening to crush me, she reminded me of the strength I had inside. "You can do this, Mia," she would say. "You've been through worse. This is nothing compared to what you've already overcome." I wasn't sure if I believed her at first, but with each passing day I started to feel it. I started to believe that maybe, just maybe, I could stand up for myself this time. The old Mia, the one who always took care of everyone else, was finally starting to fade away, replaced by someone who wasn't willing to be a doormat anymore. Marcus worked quickly. He reviewed all the documents I had from the original agreement, the down payment receipts, and even the letter from their lawyer. It was clear from the moment he saw everything that they had made a huge mistake. "Mia," he said one evening after reviewing the papers, "this transfer is fraudulent. There's no way they could have legally done this without your consent. We have everything we need to go after them." The relief that flooded through me was overwhelming. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt like I had some control. Like I wasn't completely powerless against the people who had stolen everything from me. But the fear was still there. I was scared. Scared of what would happen when I took this to the next level. What if things got worse? What if my family never forgave me? What if I lost them for good? These questions haunted me late at night, keeping me awake even as the exhaustion from my shifts at the hospital took its toll. I thought about my mother, the woman who had always claimed to love me, who had always told me I was a blessing. And yet, here I was, standing against her, against the family that had never once truly seen me. I couldn't help but wonder if this was the end of everything. Would I ever be able to look at them the same way again? Would I ever be able to forgive them for what they had done? The morning I walked into Marcus's office, I felt a knot in my stomach. I had made up my mind. I was going to fight for what was mine, but I still wasn't ready for the consequences. I didn't know how much more I could take. Marcus looked at me as I sat down across from him, a calm smile on his face. "We're moving forward with the injunction today, Mia," he said. "I'll file the papers to freeze the property, and once that's done, we'll work on getting the deed transferred back to you." I nodded, feeling the weight of it all. I had never thought it would come to this. Never imagined that it would escalate to the point where I would need to take legal action against my own family. But here I was. I had no choice. "You're doing the right thing," Marcus said, his voice steady. "They may be your family, but they've broken the law, and you don't have to let them get away with it. They've crossed a line, Mia." I swallowed hard. "I know, but it feels like I'm losing everything. Even if I get the house back, what does that really mean? What happens to us after this?" Marcus leaned forward, his gaze softening. "It doesn't matter if you win the house back or not. What matters is that you're taking control of your life for once. You're standing up for yourself. That's the victory, Mia. Not the house. The house is just a symbol of everything you've sacrificed for them, but now you're fighting for yourself. And that's what matters." His words resonated deep within me. For so long I had fought for them. I had given them everything, never asking for anything in return. And now, I was finally fighting for me. For my own future. For my own peace. But as the days wore on and the injunction was filed, the reality of the situation set in. My mom started calling, demanding that I come over and talk, trying to smooth things over. She sent me text messages, crying about how much stress this was causing her, how much she just wanted everything to go back to normal. Eric called too, though his tone was far less apologetic. He was angry, accusing me of ruining the family. I felt a wave of guilt wash over me each time I read their messages. Was this really worth it? Was I willing to lose them for good? One afternoon, I went to visit my Aunt Sarah. She was the one person who had always been there for me, the one who had never taken sides between me and Eric. As I sat at her kitchen table trying to process everything, she looked at me with understanding in her eyes. "You know what this is about, don't you?" she asked gently. I nodded, feeling the weight of her words. "It's not just about the house, is it?" "No," she said, shaking her head. "This is about your whole life, about how you've let them take from you without ever asking for anything in return. You've been giving them pieces of yourself, Mia, and they've never appreciated it. It's time to take those pieces back." I sat there, the words sinking in, and I felt a tear slip down my cheek. I had always thought that being the responsible one meant giving up parts of myself. But now, I realized that those parts of me, those dreams, that trust, that belief in family, were mine. I didn't have to give them away. And I wasn't going to anymore. Rachel called later that evening, asking if I had heard from Marcus. I told her about the injunction and how my family was already starting to make a scene. "They're going to be pissed," Rachel said, her voice full of sympathy. "But Mia, you're doing the right thing. You deserve to have your life back." I didn't know how much longer I could keep up this fight. I didn't know how much longer I could carry this burden. But as I lay in bed that night, staring up at the ceiling, I realized that I had no choice. I had to keep going. I had to fight for myself. For the first time in my life, I was standing up for the one person who had never been treated with any respect. Me. The weeks after filing the injunction felt like an emotional roller coaster. There were days when I woke up with a sense of purpose, feeling like I was finally doing something for myself, fighting for something that was mine. But there were also days when the weight of everything, my family, the betrayal, the looming legal battle, felt too much to bear. The moment I heard from Marcus again, I knew things were escalating. He called one morning, his voice calm but with an edge of urgency. "Mia," he began, "I've received confirmation that the DA's office is interested in your case. They're looking into potential criminal charges for fraud and the unauthorized transfer of the deed. This is getting serious." I sat up straighter, my heart racing. "What does that mean for me?" I asked, barely able to process the magnitude of what he was saying. "It means they're taking this seriously now," Marcus explained. "They can't just get away with this. But it also means things will get more complicated. Your parents and Eric will likely try to settle, maybe offer you something to drop the case, but it's up to you how you want to handle it." I leaned against the back of the couch, my head spinning. I had always known my family was capable of manipulation, but this was different. Now they were up against the law, and for the first time, I was seeing them for who they really were. People who would do anything to protect themselves, even if it meant tearing me down in the process. The calls from my mom kept coming, each one more frantic than the last. She tried guilt trips, played the victim, and repeatedly begged me to come to my senses. But each time I picked up the phone, I felt less and less like the person who had once wanted nothing more than to please them. "Mia, please," my mom's voice cracked through the phone. "This is tearing us apart. Your father and I can't lose you like this. Eric he's really struggling with all of this. Don't make things worse. You've been our rock. We need you, please." Her words stung, but not in the way they once would have. There was a time when I would have immediately gone to her, comforted her, told her everything would be okay, but now I could barely hold back the anger boiling inside of me. "You've already made your choice, Mom," I said, my voice steady despite the emotion swirling within me. "You've chosen Eric. You've chosen to treat me like nothing. I've given you everything I had, and you took it. You took my future, my savings, and you gave it to him. I can't just pretend that didn't happen. You've crossed a line." She was silent for a long moment, and when she spoke again, I could hear the tremor in her voice. "Mia, I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," I interrupted, my voice firm. "Because the truth is, I'm done. I've spent my whole life trying to make you happy, trying to make you proud, but now I have to make myself proud, and that starts with standing up for what's mine." I ended the call before she could respond. The weight in my chest hadn't lifted, but it felt like something had shifted. For the first time in my life, I had chosen myself over them. I wasn't going to be the person who bent over backward for a family that would never appreciate me. The next day, I went to see Marcus again. I couldn't help but feel a sense of dread creeping in. The legal process was long and painful, but it was my only chance. I had to see this through. Marcus greeted me with a reassuring smile as I walked into his office. "Mia, you're doing the right thing. We've got everything we need and we're moving forward. The injunction is in place, and I've already filed the paperwork with the court. They're not going to get away with this." I nodded, though my stomach was tight with anxiety. "What happens now?" I asked, the question on my mind since the moment I'd made the decision to fight back. "We'll wait for them to respond," Marcus explained. "They might try to offer a settlement, but I don't think they're going to have much of a choice. If it goes to court, they'll have to prove that the deed transfer was legitimate, and we both know it wasn't." The thought of court filled me with dread, but I pushed it aside. I had to keep going. I had to make sure they knew that I wasn't going to back down. Over the following days, the tension in the air was palpable. Every time I ran into someone from my family, the atmosphere was thick with unspoken words. They were all aware of what was happening, and though they didn't say it out loud, I could feel the judgment and the resentment simmering beneath the surface. But it was Eric who pushed me to my breaking point. One afternoon, I walked into the house to grab something I'd left behind, and he was there, sitting at the kitchen table with my mother and George. He looked up as I walked in, his expression a mix of disbelief and anger. "So, you're really going through with this, huh?" he said, his voice dripping with disdain. "You're willing to tear this family apart over a house? Over money? Do you really think it's worth it?" I froze for a moment, fighting the urge to explode. How dare he? How dare he stand there and act like he had any right to speak to me like that? "Yes," I said, my voice cold, "it's worth it. It's worth it because you don't get to take what's mine. It's worth it because you've used this family, used me, and I'm done letting you get away with it." Eric's eyes narrowed. "You think you're so much better than me, don't you? Just because you've worked a bunch of long shifts in a hospital doesn't mean you're entitled to everything. We're family, Mia. Family helps each other. And this is just petty." "You don't get it," I said, my voice steady but filled with the weight of everything I had held back for so long. "You don't get it because you've never had to earn anything. You've never had to fight for anything, but I have. And this is my fight now, and you don't get to make me feel guilty about it." He stood up abruptly, his chair scraping across the floor. "You've ruined everything," he spat. "You've ruined our family." I didn't say another word. I didn't need to. I was done listening to him. Done listening to all of them. I walked out of the house, the sound of Eric's angry voice fading behind me. I didn't look back. For the first time in my life, I was free. Free from their manipulation, free from the guilt, free from the endless cycle of giving without ever receiving. I was doing this for me, and I wasn't going to let them make me feel small anymore. And as I stepped into the car, I realized something. I was finally ready to let go. Let go of the past, of their expectations, and embrace the future that I had fought so hard for. The fight was far from over, but I had already won. As the legal battle unfolded, the tension in my life escalated in ways I never could have imagined. Every day seemed to bring a new challenge, a new wave of emotions I wasn't prepared for. The battle for my house had become not just a fight for property, but a fight for my dignity, my autonomy, and for the very person I had allowed myself to be. My family was reeling from the consequences of their actions, and their attempts to control me only pushed me further away. I had always believed that family was everything. I had given up so much for them, sacrificing my own dreams, my own peace, to be the person they could rely on. And now here I was, fighting for something I had worked so hard for, something that was rightfully mine. But as the case moved forward, I started to realize that the real battle wasn't just about the house. It was about redefining who I was, about reclaiming my life from the family that had never truly seen me. The phone calls from my mom kept coming, each one more frantic than the last. She would call me in the middle of the day, voice trembling, begging me to come back to the family. She promised that things would be different if I just let this go. She even tried to guilt me by telling me how much Eric was suffering, how much my refusal to let it go was tearing the family apart. I could almost hear her tears on the other end of the line. It was the same act. It was the same manipulation that had worked on me for years. But this time I wasn't falling for it, not anymore. "I'm doing this for me, Mom," I said, my voice steady despite the ache in my chest. "I've spent my whole life doing things for you, for everyone else. Now it's time for me to stand up for myself. I'm not going to back down." But my mother didn't seem to understand. "Mia, please don't do this," she pleaded. "You're going to ruin everything. You'll lose us. You'll lose everything." Her words hit harder than I cared to admit. I had spent so long trying to be the daughter she wanted, the daughter she needed. But the truth was, I couldn't keep sacrificing myself just to make her happy. And I wasn't going to let her make me feel guilty for doing what was right. One evening, just days before a critical court hearing, my phone buzzed with a text from Eric. The message was short, but the tone was clear. "We need to talk." I stared at the screen for a moment, my thoughts racing. What did he want now? After everything, he thought I would just sit down and have a calm conversation? I didn't respond right away, but the thought gnawed at me. What could he possibly say to me at this point? Would he try to guilt me into giving up? Would he try to make me believe that I was the one destroying the family? When I arrived at the coffee shop later that afternoon, I could already see him sitting at a corner table, staring at his phone. He looked different. There was no smug smile this time, no cocky attitude. Instead, his face was drawn, tense, as if the weight of everything had finally hit him. I hesitated for a moment, but then I took a deep breath and walked over to the table. I sat down, not waiting for him to speak first. "Eric, what is it?" I asked, keeping my voice calm, though a part of me wanted to scream. He glanced up, his eyes meeting mine for the first time in weeks. There was a flicker of something in his gaze. Guilt? Regret? Maybe a mix of both. "I don't know what you want me to say, Mia," he began, his voice quiet. "I'm sorry, I know I messed up. I didn't mean for it to go this far." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Sorry? After everything? After he had stolen my future, my dreams, he was just now apologizing? "You don't get it, do you?" I said, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and hurt. "It's not about you being sorry, Eric. It's about what you've taken from me. You took my savings, you took my dream, and you took everything I had worked for, and you don't even seem to understand the weight of it." He shifted uncomfortably in his seat, clearly struggling with what to say next. I didn't know what else to do. I was trying to start a family. I needed stability. And I thought if I had the house, if I had what you worked for, then everything would be okay. "But that's the problem, Eric," I said, my voice rising slightly. "You never earned it. You never worked for it. You took something that didn't belong to you, and now you expect me to just let it go?" "I didn't know what else to do," he repeated, almost pleading now. "I thought if I could just get you to see that I need this, maybe we could find a way to fix it." "I don't want to fix it with you, Eric," I said, my voice firm. "You don't get to fix anything by stealing from me, and you don't get to guilt-trip me into giving you back something that was never yours." He sighed heavily, looking down at his hands. "I guess I deserve that. I don't know how to make things right, Mia." "You don't," I said, my heart heavy. "But maybe you can start by not making it worse. Don't try to manipulate me anymore. Don't try to make me feel like I'm the one who's wrong." Eric was silent for a long time, his face reflecting the shame that had finally caught up with him. "I don't know how to fix it," he repeated, quieter now. "You can't fix it," I said, standing up. "The only thing you can do now is let me go. Let me have what's mine. And for once, stop using me to get what you want." I left the coffee shop without looking back. I wasn't sure what I had hoped to achieve by meeting with him. Maybe I thought he would apologize, that I would see a glimpse of the brother I once knew. But as I walked away, I realized that the person I had been holding on to was already gone. The Eric I had once cared about was a ghost of the past, and I wasn't sure there was anything left to salvage. The next morning, as I prepared for the court hearing, I felt a sense of clarity wash over me. I wasn't doing this for anyone else anymore. I was doing it for me. For my peace, for my future. My family had tried to control me, to guilt me, to make me feel small, but now I was in control. I had the power, and I wasn't going to let anyone take it from me. This wasn't just about a house. This was about standing up for myself, for my worth, my dignity, and my right to live my life on my own terms. The court date was coming, and I was ready to face them, ready to take back what was mine. The night before the court hearing, I couldn't sleep. My mind raced through every possibility, every potential outcome. I had come so far, but still, a part of me couldn't shake the anxiety. The thought of facing my family in the courtroom, of facing the people who had taken everything from me, who had treated me like I didn't matter, was overwhelming. But as I lay in bed, the darkness of the room surrounding me, something inside me shifted. I realized that this wasn't just about a house, or money, or even the betrayal of my family. This was about me reclaiming my life, my power, my voice. For so many years I had been the one who stood in the background, supporting everyone else, making sacrifices without ever asking for anything in return. But now I was done being invisible. I was done letting people walk all over me. The house, the money, it wasn't just a symbol of material things. It was the culmination of everything I had given up. It represented the years I had spent putting myself last, always thinking that one day my family would see me, appreciate me, and maybe, just maybe, I would get the respect I deserved. But it never came. And I couldn't keep waiting for it anymore. I had been told my whole life that family was everything. But now, I was beginning to realize that family wasn't just about blood. It was about respect. It was about loyalty. It was about valuing one another for who they were, not for what they could give. My family had never understood that. And now I was going to make sure they understood that I wasn't going to accept their manipulation anymore. The morning of the court hearing, I felt a calm determination settle in me. I was no longer afraid of the consequences. I had made my decision. I was standing up for myself. And no matter what happened in that courtroom, I knew I could walk away, knowing that I had fought for what was mine, and for my right to live my life without constantly being dragged down by toxic relationships. When I arrived at the courthouse, I felt a strange mixture of nerves and resolve. Marcus was already there, waiting for me. He gave me a quick nod of reassurance as I approached. "You're ready for this, Mia," he said, his voice firm and confident. "This is your fight. You've come this far. Now it's time to finish it." I nodded, though the tension in my chest didn't completely dissipate. The thought of my family sitting across from me, looking at me with those same disappointed, hurt expressions, made my stomach twist. But I couldn't back down. Not now. Not after everything. When the court session finally began, it felt like time slowed down. The judge entered, and the room fell silent. I glanced at my parents and Eric, who sat together on the opposite side of the room, their faces strained with anxiety. For a brief moment, I almost felt guilty. Almost. But then I reminded myself of what was at stake. This wasn't just about money or a house anymore. This was about my future. About my ability to live without constantly being torn apart by their demands, their expectations, their manipulation. The proceedings were a blur of legal jargon and arguments, but I didn't let it overwhelm me. I stayed focused. Marcus presented the evidence of fraud. How the house had been transferred without my consent. How the signatures on the documents had been forged. He argued that my family had betrayed me, taken advantage of my kindness and generosity, and that I was entitled to the property that had always been meant for me. My mom's eyes were filled with tears as she listened to the evidence, her face pale and drawn. Eric, on the other hand, seemed to shrink under the weight of his actions, though he still tried to maintain that smug, defensive demeanor. I didn't care anymore. I didn't care what they thought of me. When it was my turn to speak, I stood up slowly, my voice unwavering as I addressed the judge. "Your Honor," I began, my words clear and steady. "I've spent my entire life trying to do the right thing. I worked hard to build a future for myself. I gave everything I had to my family, and all I wanted was for them to appreciate me, to see me for the person I was. Instead, I've been taken advantage of. My parents, my brother, none of them have ever seen what I've sacrificed. They've taken everything from me, and I'm not going to stand by and let it happen any longer." I paused, gathering my strength. I'm not doing this because I want revenge. I'm doing this because I have to. I have to stand up for myself. I have to show that I am worth something. I've given too much of myself to people who don't appreciate it, and I'm done being treated like I don't matter. The room was silent as I sat down, and I felt a strange sense of relief wash over me. It was out there now, the truth. And no matter what happened next, I had finally said what I needed to say. When the judge made his ruling, I felt like the ground had shifted beneath me. The deed was to be transferred back to me, and the fraudulent paperwork would be voided. The court ordered my family to pay restitution for the damages they had caused, including legal fees. But the victory wasn't just legal. It was emotional. For the first time in my life, I felt like I had taken control. I had stood up for myself. And in that moment, I realized that this wasn't just about the house. It was about my ability to say no, to set boundaries, to finally walk away from a family that had never truly respected me. After the hearing, I called Rachel to tell her the news. As I walked out of the courthouse, the weight I had carried for so long seemed to lift off my shoulders. "You did it, Mia," she said, her voice full of pride. "I knew you could." "I did," I replied, a smile spreading across my face. "And for the first time, I feel free. I'm not going to let them control me anymore. This is my life now, and I'm going to live it for me." The weeks that followed were filled with change. I took the house back, of course. But the most important change was internal. I didn't feel the same pull to be the person my family wanted me to be. I stopped letting their expectations dictate my happiness. I moved forward, creating a new life for myself. One that wasn't defined by the toxic relationships that had once drained me. I sold the house on Maple Street. The developer offered a great price, and with the settlement money and my legal fees covered, I found a beautiful cottage on the outskirts of town. It had the garden I had always dreamed of, and it felt like a new beginning. I spent my days planting flowers, tending to the garden, and creating a space that was truly mine. I had never known peace like this before. But the biggest change was within me. I had learned to set boundaries, to say no without feeling guilty, to take care of myself first. And slowly, over time, I started to rebuild my life on my own terms. Rachel and I spent more time together, and I started dating again, something I had put off for years. I joined a local book club, met new people, and found a sense of belonging that I had never felt before. And though my family still tried to reach out, still sent me text messages, guilt trips, and complaints, I stood firm. I wasn't going to let them back into my life on their terms. One afternoon, my mom showed up at my door, unannounced. She looked older, more tired than I remembered. She stood by the fence, watching me as I worked in my garden. "You've done well for yourself," she said, her voice soft, almost hesitant. "I just wanted to see how you're doing, how your garden is growing." I didn't invite her in, but I didn't shut her out either. I kept my distance, but I didn't feel anger anymore, just a deep sense of peace. "You're right, Mom," I said, brushing the dirt from my hands as I stood. "It's growing. Everything is growing." And for the first time in years, I realized that I was growing too. I was no longer the person who was afraid to stand up for myself. I was no longer the person who let others dictate her happiness. I had built my life on my own terms, and I was finally free. It's been almost a year since that day in the courtroom, the day I took back not just the house, but my life. The change has been nothing short of transformative. If someone had told me then, as I sat in that cold, sterile courtroom, that I would feel so much peace and contentment in such a short time, I would have laughed. I was still figuring out what it meant to put myself first, to walk away from the toxic, manipulative dynamics of my family. I had no idea what would happen next. But now, as I sit on my porch, sipping my morning coffee and watching the sunrise over my new garden, I know this. I made the right choice. The fight for my house was only the beginning. It wasn't about property or money. It was about my self-worth, my freedom, my ability to live authentically without fear of being torn apart by others' expectations. And I had finally achieved it. I glance at the garden, now full of vibrant flowers and vegetables. The tomatoes are ripening on the vine, the cucumbers climbing their trellis, and my violets are blooming in neat rows along the flower beds. I used to think gardening was just a hobby, a way to relax after a long shift at the hospital, but now it's become a symbol of something deeper. It's a metaphor for my life. Just as I've nurtured these plants, I've nurtured my own growth, giving myself the space to flourish. I never imagined I'd be someone who could say no without guilt, or who would prioritize herself above others. But I've learned that saying no isn't selfish. It's necessary. It's a form of self-care. I'm not responsible for carrying everyone else's burdens anymore. I've set boundaries that protect my peace, and I refuse to apologize for it. At work, I've noticed a shift in myself. I'm no longer the person who takes on every extra shift, who stays late because I feel guilty leaving others with the work. I've been promoted to charge nurse, which comes with more responsibility, but also better hours and more time for myself. I can't help but smile when I see how much more confident I've become, how I'm standing up for myself in meetings, how I'm unapologetically taking time off when I need it. And at the hospital, I'm hearing stories of how I've inspired others, especially the younger nurses. They tell me how they admire the way I've taken control of my life, how I've stopped letting others take advantage of me. One of the younger nurses recently said, "If you can stand up to your whole family, I can stand up to one person." And I realize that this is the legacy I'm leaving behind. Not just the legal victory, not just the house, but the example I'm setting for others. Rachel, of course, has been my rock through all of this. She's the one who saw me at my lowest when I was questioning whether I'd ever have the courage to stand up for myself. She's the one who, from the very beginning, told me that I didn't have to do everything for everyone else, that I could choose me. And now, every time we have coffee together or sit on my porch, I can't help but be grateful for her unwavering support. She's seen me through the worst and helped me become the person I am today. The phone calls from my mom haven't stopped entirely. She still reaches out, still tries to guilt me, telling me that she misses me and wants to rebuild our relationship. But every time I remind myself that I've already made my choice. I'm not going back to the person I was, the one who let her family dictate her happiness, the one who always put herself last. I'm not going to feel guilty anymore for living my life on my terms. My mom's last voicemail, a few weeks ago, was full of the usual guilt. How much she missed me, how difficult things were for her and Eric, and how hard it was for her to watch the family fall apart. I didn't listen to the whole message. Instead, I deleted it and went back to my garden, feeling a sense of calm I hadn't known before. Sometimes when I drive past their house, I see my mom and Eric in the yard talking, but I don't feel angry anymore. I don't feel sad or resentful. Instead, I feel a quiet sense of justice. I did the right thing. I fought for myself, and now I have the life I've always dreamed of. They'll have to face the consequences of their actions, just as I faced mine. I've made peace with the fact that my family is never going to be what I once hoped for. That's a hard pill to swallow, but it's true. They're still stuck in their cycles of blame, of excuses, and of expecting others to fix their problems. And I can't be that person anymore. I can't keep setting myself on fire to keep them warm. I've learned that sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is to let them face the consequences of their actions. But as I sit here in my garden watching the flowers bloom, I realize that this isn't just about letting go of my family. It's about reclaiming my own power. It's about building a life that I can be proud of. And it's about knowing that I am enough, just as I am. I've learned to forgive myself for the things I've allowed in the past. I've learned that standing up for myself isn't about being perfect. It's about being true to who I am and what I deserve. The money they stole, the house they took, it's all just stuff. What I've gained in return is something far more valuable. My freedom, my confidence, and my peace of mind. Life is better now. I've cultivated a life that's truly my own, one filled with peace, boundaries, and a sense of purpose. The relationship I have with myself is the healthiest it's ever been, and I've learned that it's not selfish to take care of myself. It's necessary. I am the only one who can live my life for me, and I'm finally doing it. I don't know what the future holds, but for the first time in a long time, I'm excited to find out. I'm not the person I was before. I'm stronger, wiser, and more at peace with myself. And if anything, I've learned that the best revenge isn't about getting even, it's about getting better. So I'll keep tending to my garden, I'll keep taking care of myself, and I'll keep moving forward one day at a time, knowing that I've made it this far, and nothing is going to take away the peace I've finally found. And that, I've realized, is all that truly matters.